You just tuned it in.
Global and worldwide.
Hitting you on the one with no delay. Because it's the Fighter's Voice.
The Fighter's Voice.
With your fighting host, Richard Ortiz.
And the formidable co-host,
Mr. Cole Escobedo. Remember, every fighter has a voice.
Hey, this is Rich Ortiz here with the Fighter's Voice Knockout Radio. We're simply knocking out the competition. We're here in Riverside, California, here at Garcia Boxing Academy. How we doing? Today's guest is Robert Garcia, the one and only Hall of Famer. How we doing, my man?
Thanks for having me, Richard. It's really
hey, man,
an honor to be here.
It's a pleasure. Exactly, because I know your schedule's so difficult. If you can't come to Fresno, Fresno will come to
That's
you here
right.
at Riverside, California.
That's awesome, man. Thanks for coming.
No, it's a pleasure, man. In watching you work and watching you instruct, I mean, it's almost like therapeutic, man. I mean, because I'm watching you, and almost like when you see a deer cross, you know what I mean? I mean, it's just with grace, man. I mean, not saying that you're a reindeer, but you know exactly what I'm talking about,
right,
man.
no, definitely.
We're not talking about wildlife, man. We're talking about wildlife inside that boxing ring.
Inside the ring. Look, it's a passion. We love it. We've been doing it for many years, and we enjoy every minute of it.
And talking about passion, man, the one and only, the Godfather himself made his way in there, and that's your pops right behind you, man.
My pops is here almost every day, especially sparring days. He comes, he watches the sparring, and whatever advice he could give any of my fighters, they appreciate it. And he wants to have he wants his son to have a winner's team, and that's why he's here. He's here almost every day.
Absolutely, because I'm looking up there at that wall of fame there, and I see the champ there with his belt, nice rip and primed up, and I know your pops had a lot to do with that.
He's the one that made me a champion. When we started boxing in Oxnard out of La Colonia Boxing Club,
yeah.
And we worked hard. It wasn't easy. My father's first world champion wasn't easy. Politics, when politics get involved, and a lot of management, promotional problems, stuff like that. The only reason we probably made it because it's dedication. The dedication my dad has for the sport, making sure I get up at 5 a.m. to go run. And then he would go to work after that, come back from work straight to the gym, still covered in mud and strawberries. He would change his shoes in the gym and train me and a whole bunch of other fighters till 8 p.m. and then go home, shower up, go to sleep, and next day in the morning, same thing. He did that for well over 20 years.
I saw that story, that story by your brother Mikey, where he's narrating that. I mean, beautiful, heartwarming story. And a lot of people are unaware. A lot of people really don't know exactly what took place. They think, hey, Robert Garcia is just this ultimate trainer and ex-champion, former champion. They don't know that your dad paved the way and the dedication. Back in the day when he was working out in the fields, coming from the field and to his own destination, which is the boxing ring.
I remember there was a lot of people that would tell my dad, you're a field worker, you pick strawberries. How boxing's not for you. Even my dad tells me that even uncles that he had back then that would tell him, forget boxing, just work and do what everybody else does. Coming from Mexico as immigrants, they come to work the fields and that's it. They have nothing else. They can't do anything else. But my dad always had that in mind. I'm gonna make a world champion, and not only did he make me a world champion, Fernando Vargas also became a world champion, and obviously he's a big part of Mikey's success also. So now we could say 3 world champions, from a field worker.
Absolutely,
it's something that you got to admire and respect.
Hey, later with that wall, let's put a whole boxing ring around there. If Donald Trump wants to build that wall, let's build it with ropes like boxing, like a boxing ring, right?
That'd be better, right?
Let's do it, right?
Definitely.
Shoot, there it is right there. Paved the way, man. I mean, that's real talk right there.
That's right.
Had to throw that in there, man, because you kind of led up to that, man. But I want to ask you from day one. I overheard you did you're doing an interview with Showtime. I mean, you had one of your fighters here today. It was media day, and he asked you a question. He said, "Robert, when did you start fighting?" And I'm going to repeat the question. When did you start falling in love with the sport of boxing?
Look, I started boxing since I was a kid. My first amateur fight was when I was 5 years old. My father always trained me, my sisters, because I have 4 sisters that are around, the same age as me. They're not that much older than me, and I used to spar with all my sisters. I trained with all my sisters, and when I was 5, my father took me to a amateur show, and I had my first amateur fight at 5, and everything started there. Look, when I fell in love with the sport, I could probably say when I started training fighters. All my boxing career, since I was a kid, it was more because my dad was the one pushing me to go to the gym, doing nothing but boxing. And there was moments where I kind of disliked the sport, maybe wasn't doing what my friends were doing, playing other sports, doing school activities, and I was never allowed to do that. But, now I got to say that if it wasn't for my dad pushing me that much, I probably would have never become a world champion, or I probably wouldn't be the trainer that I am now. So he taught me a lot, and when at first I could probably say I used to hate going to the gym every day, or there was moments where I wanted to quit. My dad being there with me and forcing me and pushing me to the fullest made me where I am now. And everything I know I learned from him. I'm, as a trainer, I think I'm doing better than many other trainers in the world, and I'm very happy, and I know that everything I've done, I owe it to my dad.
You're being very humble when you just say better. You're the best in the game. How does that make you feel when people tell you, Robert, you are the best in the game? I mean, there's a whole line of who's who that would love to walk in here, sign papers with you, and be under your supervision, your training. How does that make you feel?
Honestly, look, I don't see myself as being the best, and I don't want to be the best, because if I was the best and I consider myself the best, then that means I wouldn't want to learn anymore. I don't want to. I wouldn't have the passion to do it. Look, I have from world champions like Ramirez to Mikey, Jose Ramirez, Carlos Licona, to guys that are preparing to make a pro debut. Right. If I wanted to consider myself the best and let everybody know that I'm the best, then I'd probably just be working with my top world champions, world class fighters. I wouldn't be focusing on pro guys making the pro debuts. I don't see myself as the best. I know there's great trainers out there, and there's trainers that have accomplished so much in boxing that it's going to be hard for me to accomplish as much as they have, but I still have that that desire to keep doing better and keep doing it, and who knows how long I'm going to be. I could do it for another 20 years if I want.
Well, I know your name's been mentioned with the Emmanuel Stewarts, the Angelo Dundees, the Lou Duvas, and that alone, and even the Freddie Roaches, and that alone says a lot for what you're doing, and you're still in top of your game. A fighter's prime has 5 years of its prime. If he's a top-notch fighter, maybe 3 in the era that we live in now. But your prime, you're still going. I mean, you reinvented yourself. You're not in any time, shape, or form going to say, okay, I'm going to call it quits. Your longevity here in the sport.
Look, I started young, and I've been pretty successful from what I'm doing. I'm only 43 now, and like I told you, I could easily do it for another 20 years, and I'll still be young for boxing. My dad's 74, and he still comes to the gym every day. So I could do it maybe 30 more years if I want.
There you go.
But look, I know there's, you mentioned the names, the Dundees, the Lou Duvas,
Emmanuel Stewart.
Emmanuel Stewart. I wouldn't even mention my name around those guys, man.
Well, the Fighters Voice just did today.
Those guys are, those trainers are great trainers. Mexico has had great trainers too, like Nacho Beristain, who
legendary.
I definitely don't want to consider myself in that group. Hopefully, one day, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, hopefully I'm still doing what I'm doing. Hopefully then is when my name could be mentioned among them. I got so much respect for those trainers, and I don't consider myself in that level yet. Well,
you keep doing what you're doing. We're going to have to get a bigger building because we're going to have to put all the champions all the way around here, man. I mean, if you make it up on top right here with any one of those bouts, you're doing well, man. And I like that. I like the way it's put together here, man.
Look, that's one thing all my fighters see. On one side, I have all the prospects.
Right.
On the other side, I have all the ones that have become world champions.
Right.
So they know that once they win a title, their picture goes to the
picture's going
other
up
side,
there.
and they train hard. That's the only thing they have in their mind. Is they want to be up there, or they want their logo. They want their logo in the van.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Their logo will go on the van when they're world champions. So that's one thing they're aiming for. And they see the Mikeys, the Abner Mares, Jose Ramirez. They see Licona who was fighting for free in Tijuana last year, a few fights in Tijuana, fighting for free, and gets a title opportunity, becomes a world champion. Those are the real stories. Those are the stories that fighters want to see. And all my young fighters, they see, man, I remember this kid driving every day to the gym, and nobody really cared much about him.
Right.
And now he's a world champion. Now that they know, a lot of them didn't even know, this kid was collecting aluminum cans to make money, to make gas money, to drive to Riverside, because he lives in Orange County. That way he could be driving back and forth. He was collecting aluminum cans
And
to
you know
get
what?
gas money.
And there's
So
where it starts.
those
there.
are good stories.
Before you get in the ring to become a champion, you start becoming a champion of life to be able to get from A to B, to make your own opportunity. And those are great stories. Those are great stories.
Those are our stories that a lot of boxing world people that watch it on TV, they don't know, they don't see the way, the struggles that fighters go through. We have every world champion has a story. How they get started.
Every fighter has a voice.
Because look, I'm going to tell you exactly. Every fighter has a voice. Look, boxing is a sport not for the rich or the educated or the ones with college degrees. I don't know if there's any, but if there is, very few have gone through college, through university and stuff like that, and decide to become professional boxers. Boxing is the sport for the poor, for the
Marco Antonio Barrera got a degree.
He's got a degree. Yeah.
Yes.
One of
yes.
many.
Yes. One of few.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So look, that's why when they become world champions and they start making good paydays, that's all the fans see, because that's when they start seeing them on TV. They don't see all the struggles. They don't see everything they went through. They didn't see the sacrifices that it takes. Exactly.
The losses, not on their record, but in life. The losses of opportunities. I don't want to say opportunities, but losses of just sacrificing themselves to go to practice, to work out, the training, and along the way.
Myself, look, I was already a professional fighter when I was in high school. I turned pro at 17. So my whole senior year, I was already a professional fighter, and senior year is probably the best year of a teenager.
Right.
They want to go to prom, they want to do all the senior activities that they do. Whatever you name it, whatever it is. And I wasn't able to do none of that because I was already fighting. I was already a professional fighter, so I had to go to sleep early. I had to go to the gym every day. So I never did none of that. So all those are sacrifices too. Or when I fought for the title, I already had my two youngest, my two oldest kids. Yeah. They were already born and going to training camps for 2-3 months at a time. Stuff like that is things that people don't know and people don't see. Exactly. It takes a lot of sacrifice to be where we're at now.
And I see that, and I'm glad you brought up your kids, because I know your son, I mean, he's exactly where you're at. It's almost a clone, but a younger version of you. I mean, you trust his judgment, you trust his experience, and you trust his know-how, and you continue to educate him, and he also learns from your grandpa. Let's talk about that.
Exactly. Look, my son, Pita, he's junior, but everybody calls him Pita. He's one that, at 23, I could already trust him and send him over to different locations when it comes to fights. If I can make it to one fight, I know he's capable of doing whatever it takes to prepare the fighter and get him ready to get the win. He's here in the gym. He talks to my dad a lot. My dad talks to him a lot. My dad already prepared me. Now he's preparing my son with experience, with knowledge, and he's learning. He's only 23, but he already knows a lot of boxing.
You know what? He has a very. I spoke to him. I had the pleasure of talking to him, and he has a very high boxing IQ.
He does. He really does. He is very smart, and he's one that also has very good eye for choosing talent.
That's good.
He's the one that's found most of my young fighters that we sign and turn pro. He's the one that's told me about him. Dad, this kid right here, we got to go after this kid, and so far all the kids
So far,
keep
so
winning.
far, so good. Hey, I want to ask you this. Abner's fighting. What's your whole take on that? What's your whole take on Davis? Because people seem to think that it's the Davis show.
Look, that's the way they're seeing it. It's Davis' first main event on a big TV network. First main event on a big arena. Man, they're gonna be in for a surprise. That's exactly the way they were thinking of Broner when he fought Maidana.
Yes.
The press conference we had a couple of weeks ago here in LA for Davis and Mares, they said the exact same things about Davis that they did a few years back when we had the press conference for Broner Maidana. The